So I played quite a bit of Pal World recently, and aside from some unoriginal Pal designs, there's one thing that's keeping it from being the perfect game, and it's that it doesn't have Rowlet in it. Like, come on, 2 Decidueye lookalikes, but no room for a Borb? So it's time to bring the Round Squad back into action to prove that Rowlet can conquer all that stands in its way. Let's see if just a squad of Rowlets can beat the Scarlet and Violet DLC. Rules: Number 1, Rowlet only. Number 2, no items in battle. Number 3, play as if you're on set mode. And number 4, no friendship abuse. We did the main story already last year, so if you haven't seen that yet, you might consider checking that video out before this one. There are many strategies and techniques used in the original video that carry over, and I will be discussing the story of the DLC in this one, so turn back to avoid spoilers if you wish. Let's jump into part 1, the Teal Mask. I actually did this part a while back, during a subathon in early October, and this journey through Kitakami was rather easy. We arrive in Kitakami, and Carmine doesn't want to let us into town, so she challenges us to a battle and gives us our long-awaited reunion with Round Boy. And they're no match for him. Poochyena, Vulpix, and Poltergeist all go down quick and easy. This is the theme with Kitakami, seeing as we're still level 100 from the main story. Carmine accuses us of cheating, saying there's no way we should have been able to beat her. But come on, Rowlets are legal at this point in the game. Can we just give the Round Squad their legality card now? Kieran comes in and says, "Wowzers! Can I get a crack at those Borbs?" As if his Sentret and Yanma would be able to face the power of Round Boy. We visit the signboards and they tell us about the ugliest thing in the known cosmos. And we're curious as to how ugly it could actually be, so we go where it's supposed to live. And Kieran wants to battle me again for some reason? Wait. Why did his Pokemon evolve? It's been precisely 12 minutes since our last battle, and like half of that was us talking to each other. Must have had experience candies or something. But wait, when did you have time to catch that Poliwrath? I've been with you this whole time. Something's fishy here. Round Boy usually has good matchups with fish though, so he comes in with a sweep. We get back to Kieran's place where we get an exceptionally more stylish hairdo. They kinda did the male characters dirty on this one. We have a date with Kieran and Carmine to the Mask Festival, but we only have 2 masks, and rather than the obvious, let's go buy another mask, Carmine's like, no, let's battle over them. And she actually gave me a little bit of trouble. I led with our boy What Is Round, but Morpeko paralyzed him, so I swapped into Roundish Bish and took it out. And I decided to keep her in, even with the -1 attack from Mightyena. We 2-shot it with Trailblaze, and Sinistcha comes in next, taking 3 Shadow Sneaks to take down. With her final Pokemon being Swadloon, Roundish Bish scores a crit on turn 1 to be able to take it out in 3 turns, which was needed for her to be able to finish the job, as Swadloon was 1 turn away from taking her out. It's not surprising that we're slightly struggling here, given Rowlet's base stat total versus the fully evolved Pokemon, even if we are all level 100. After the battle, we all went to the festival, and Kieran and I had a candy apple date. And you guys should go on a date with that subscribe button. That was a terrible plug, I know, but come on, I gotta get the plug in here, because it allows me to thank you guys for us hitting the ultimate goal, 69 420 subscribers. Thank you all so much. It wouldn't have been possible without you, and that means we're officially on the road to 100,000. I do all things Pokemon here, so if you like Pokemon, make sure to subscribe. Even if you've watched several videos of mine, you might not be subscribed yet, so take a couple seconds and double check, and you'll be able to claim the before 100k bragging rights. After some ogre ousting, I saw something green. Hoping it was a pile of money, I went over to investigate, but it was just some kid that Carmine scared off. As they were retreating though, they dropped their mask, and we saw their face. We talked it over and realized that it must have been the Ogre of Legend. But there was just one problem with that idea. The legends talked about the ugliest thing in the known cosmos, but this thing was way too cute for that. We slept on the idea and asked Carmine's grandpa for advice the next morning, and he told us the real story of the ogre. It wasn't ugly, just the mask was, but Kieran thought the ugly mask was cute, and not wanting to burden Kieran with this heartbreaking news, we lied to him. He was eavesdropping, so he knows that we lied to him, prompting him to want to battle us. I foolishly used the Terrafire quite unround, and was almost punished for it because of his Poliwrath. But he used Haze on the turn that I attacked him with Trailblaze, and I just so happened to get a crit during it. His Ferret uses Super Fang during my ensuing setup turn, allowing quite unround to finish the sweep. After a Milo Treat break, it was time to hit the Crystal Pool, and with mine and Carmine's electric-type Pokemon, we were able to take care of it. With some very limited story after that, we can face Kieran yet again. I can't help but feel like the pacing of how these guys progress in this DLC is very off. Like, Kieran starts off with 2 wimpy Pokemon, and in a matter of a day or two of in-game time and a couple hours of real time, he has a fully stacked team of properly trained Pokemon. Yanmega hits me for a decent amount while I Swords Dance and go for Terra Ice with what is round. Being conscious of not being full HP, I went for Protect for leftovers healing, only for Kieran to outsmart me using Haze on the Protect turn, because Haze will still eliminate your stat changes through Protect. I figured it was all over, but Brick Break only does about half of my current HP, allowing me to hit a Trailblaze, which then allows me to outspeed Poliwrath for the second Trailblaze. In comes Gligar, which Terra Blast destroys, and against Cramorant I go for Swords Dance to have Terra Blast one-shot it and to take care of the Diplin easily. Diplin. Still, honestly, why is that even a Gotham? Kieran's anger is so strong it activates the Sussy 3, and as I went to rescue Ogerpon from their bullying, I saw I forgot to heal for my Terastallization. Some of you might not commonly use Terastallization, but it's quite important for these challenge runs. Even though I one-shot Munkidori after one Swords Dance, without Terastallization, it would have had a real chance at doing some damage. With having rescued Ogerpon, she'll follow us around, and maybe that's not the best idea. Oh god! I am dead. I am dead from that fall. After not dying somehow, it was time to fight Okie Dokie, and things were not Okie Dokie, because I forgot to heal for Terastallization again. I was then gaslit into believing that it took 3 turns to happen, making me waste a few minutes of my time fighting it. It was worth the delay though, as the RNG in the actual fight was god tier. Okie Dokie was relentlessly paralyzed haxed, and with Terra Blast flying, it was a breeze. See what I did there? Oh my god, scriptwriter me is so good. For Munkidori, I wasn't exactly paying attention enough to realize that it went +2 with Nasty Plot, making it do huge damage. And then the situation got worse, as it went +4. But its physical defense is frail enough that a +4 Terra Sucker Punch was able to take it out with what Morpeko was able to do in that time. And with Pheasantipity, Morpeko was a damage sponge, allowing our Fireborb to set up for 2 strong fire attacks. With all of the masks retrieved from the Loyal 3, it was time for Kieran to go crazy.
Crazy? I was crazy once.
He leads Shiftry, as I immediately go Terra Fire quite unround. I set up with Swords Dance, 1 Trailblaze, then 2 more Swords Dances, taking every other turn to protect for our leftovers healing. I would take out Shiftry with a second Trailblaze for extra speed. This setup prepared me to one-shot almost everything on his team. The only exception was Probopass, whose power gem was slightly frightening. A crit would have been concerning, but honestly, if it did, it probably wouldn't have been that big of a deal. Even with everything being a bit too close in level for comfort, leftovers and Protect can make things simple, even if they don't go to plan initially. But while everything else in the Teal Mask is relatively easy, only needing 1 Rowlet most of the time, the rest of the DLC is about to turn it up to 11, starting with the absolutely ridiculous Ogerpon battle. Not only does the army of Borbs have to defeat a legendary, but they have to defeat the legendary 4 times, when their base stats look like this, and the legendary looks like this, and gets free stat boosts. The attack boost was looking to be particularly problematic, as it does about 2/3 to even a neutral Borb. And from what I can tell, Ogerpon has good AI, so it's basically just going to want to spam Ivy Cudgel, dealing the most damage that it can. And it's a pretty good strat, as it would be able to one-shot a Rowlet that's not Terastallized. At least it would only spam Ivy Cudgel if it weren't for Grassy Terrain. Grassy Terrain will be chosen at random if it's not currently on the field. This can often be on turn 1, allowing me to get a Swords Dance in, as well as getting a second one during the first Ivy Cudgel. And at +4, the Terra Dark Sucker Punch is able to one-shot each mask except for the Rock Mask, not one-shotting that one due to the boost in its defense. But we're able to regenerate a sizable amount of HP before then, allowing us to be able to tank another Cudgel, and the cleanup of the rest of the fight goes smoothly. Somewhat anticlimactically though, this isn't the final battle of the Teal Mask. We need to add our newly caught Ogerpon to our party and fight Carmine, as she wants to see how strong Ogerpon really is. So ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to Rounderpon. Kinda fits TBH, though Ogerpon just needs to be in the party and doesn't actually have to battle, so we can just use a Borb. But why would she need to see Ogerpon's strength anyway? The real strongest Pokemon in the Kitakami region is right here. Setting up Roundish Bish with Terra Electric, +6 attack and +2 speed off of her Mightyena, she was able to take out the rest of Carmine's team with ease, topping it off with a Terra Blast crit against Sinistcha for good measure. And this marks the end of the first DLC, and everyone lived happily ever after. oh no, Kieran's gone crazy again. This is surprisingly direct for a Pokemon game. Kieran's anger, frustration, and jealousy towards you, the main character, for being the main character and getting to catch Ogerpon, leaves him a bit deranged, with a burning desire to get revenge on you. And this obsession does eventually drive him to becoming one of the best Pokemon trainers of all time, just like you might see an athlete getting better when they're mad. Now, if only these better Pokemon stories could be accompanied by better FPS and graphics moving forward. Before we'd be able to fight the new souped-up Kieran, we'd have to let several real-life months pass, as the next DLC wasn't out yet. But soon enough, we'd get the call from our professor, telling us of the new opportunities to study at Blueberry Academy. And the Blueberry Academy arc is rather crazy for a challenge run, due to it containing mainly double battles. This will increase the difficulty in a way with the extra randomness. However, it also opens up certain strategic opportunities that you can exploit if you know what to look for. Not that we needed these exploits in the first battle, because Lacey uses weak Pokemon perhaps as a way of introducing you to double battles, which kind of reminds you that this is certain people's first Pokemon game ever, and with your only other double battles being in VGC or way back at the 6th gym, some people might be due for a refresher. I did have one Borb get paralyzed, but it was an easy fight as designed. Lacey takes us on a field trip to the terrarium for our first class here. If you ask me, these classes are better than at the SV Academy. More hands-on activity. For the class, we have to catch an Alolan Pokemon, and I caught a Grimer. Wait, what does this thing evolve into again? I'm having trouble remembering. Muck. Like, come on, Game Freak. There's no way that wasn't intentional. The initial storyline of the Indigo Disk kinda drags here, so let me spice it up for you a little. After class, we get a call from Carmine, confessing her love. But she would only accept us as a duo if we could beat her in a battle. Carmine doesn't really improve from Kitakami though, outside of being able to terrestrialize and it being a double battle now. She arguably got worse though, having less Pokemon to fight with. A wild Drayton appears after the battle, jealous of Carmine's new love interest, and decides to make it a love triangle, though Yasana here looks like she could be related to Drayton, so she just kinda shrugs off his advance. Oh wait, they're getting lunch together. Drayton confesses that he needs him a strong Dami Mommy. Don't we all? And nothing says Dami Mommy to him like being a league champion. So we set our sights on defeating the Blueberry Elite Four and the champion, Kieran. Bum bum bum. Kieran's still crazy because Yasana rejected him in Kitakami. Ogerpon also rejected him because she was like, I'm a Pokemon bro, that's so weird. And now Kieran wants to kill Yasana because if he can't have her, no one can. How'd I do? Was that better or worse than the actual story? Unfortunately though, it's time for what was a rather boring section of the challenge. I was streaming for the initial portion of the Indigo Disk and a chatter reminded me about a particular roadblock, being the terrarium only battles. Drayton thinks it'd be totally lame if we just went into our boxes for our strong and mighty Pokemon, as if I haven't been using a squad of tiny owls for my entire journey. But this is where many challenge runs that will include the DLC will come to die, as if you can't catch it in the terrarium, it's not usable. I'm not sure if eggs work though. Let me know if they do in the comments. However, in the case of Rowlet, we can actually catch it in the terrarium. It's just, we gotta do BBQs, and this account doesn't have online, and I also didn't have any experience candies. Thankfully I did still have the Blissey event raids on this save file from way back when, but it would still take me a few hours to unlock the Rowlets doing BBQs solo, as well as to get all the extra BP I needed and get the experience candies to get them leveled up. Then I used vitamins and EV training on my main SCARLET save file, which I didn't really need to do, it just saved me a little bit of extra time, but in the end all of this added time led to us adding some new members to the Round Squad. Introducing Roundint and Never Round. Because, my god, these natural IVs are terrible. After fixing those with hyper training, it was finally time to put them to work. I tackled Drayton's trial first, mainly to see if I would end up needing more Borbs for it or not. Never Round was set up with Screen, Sub, Protect, and Sucker Punch, with Roundint being set up for special attacking Terra Blast Fairy, as that's a bit more optimal for the Drayton fight. I'm going to be glossing over plenty of things in this part of the DLC, but let's understand just how long everything takes. These simple double battles, 2v2, take about 5 minutes, and it doesn't help that every Pokemon from these fights has something super effective against someone I bring, and there can still be hiccups like getting trolled by Sandslash's Snow Cloak ability, and seeing as those take at least 5 minutes each, think of how long a full team of 6 from Drayton is going to take. Maybe now you understand the pain I was going to be going through here, because most of these tough battles also took multiple attempts. For my first attempt with Drayton, I went with our Terra Fairy, a couple Borbs with Helping Hand, and a couple Swords Swords Dance Sucker Punchers, and somehow this first attempt went pretty good. I was able to set up a little bit and take out Dragonite and Flygon, only for Haxorus to level Roundint with the Iron Head coverage. My setup Sucker Punchers would be able to take me all the way to Archaludon, but Round Boy was only +2, and I only had 1 PP left for Sucker Punch. And I had forgotten about Stamina from Archaludon, so with its ever-increasing defenses, we just didn't have enough firepower. This told me I definitely needed to have our Terra Fairy Bird available for Archaludon at the end, or at the very least, have a Sucker Puncher Rowlet at +6. But it became apparent that none of that was going to be happening soon, as I spent the next half hour failing to even get past Flygon and Dragonite. Ice Spinner from Dragonite one-shots a non-Terra Borb, and Stone Edge from Flygon also does a ton of damage, with the heightened crit chance also meaning a heightened one-shot chance. But this half hour of failures allowed me to brainstorm on what more to do, and I would devise a winning strategy that could even carry me through the rest of the Blueberry League. Getting one-shot by a pseudo-legendary is less than ideal, so of course I would think of ways to mitigate that damage. And there happens to be a bird-themed move, Feather Dance, that lowers opponents' attack by 2 stages. Thankfully, both Drayton's Flygon and Dragonite are strictly physical attackers, but Feather Dance alone doesn't help out that much because they would both outspeed me, leaving one of the Borbs to die guaranteed without doing anything. That is, unless I used the Quick Claw to have a chance to outspeed, and thus the Quick Feather Strat was born, where you use Feather Dance to weaken the front line to -6, then set up with the main attackers. Though even at -6, Dragonite still does a lot of damage with Ice Spinner, given the 4x super effectiveness and the base stat advantage that it has. But I still had to try to keep Dragonite on the field as long as possible, because whatever switches in would still do more damage not being at -6. I build up with Nasty Plot and Swords Dance as long as I can, finally taking down Dragonite with Terra Blast. In comes Haxorus, still being a threat with that Iron Head, and unfortunately I would have to eat one of them. But I figured lowering its attack to -4 would be useful because I still had to set up another Borb, and it paid off as he had Haxorus go for Dragon Dance while Roundint delivered the finishing blow. In a surprise twist, he threw out Kingdra instead of Sceptile next, forcing me to either protect or aggressively attack it, but having to potentially sacrifice Slight Round, who is +4. But it was here that I finally got a crit that may or may not have mattered. Unfortunately though, from all the chip damage Flygon had been delivering, it killed itself entirely with its Life Orb, meaning a full-strength Sceptile and Archaludon would come out at the same time. This wasn't ideal at all, as Roundint was rather weak at this point. I thought that maybe Archaludon was hard-coded to use Electro Shot on its first turn, so I went for the kill instead of protecting. But it wasn't, and Sceptile's Leaf Storm was aimed at Roundint and would be able to take it out anyway. Even with that L, I still had 3 Borbs left, so victory wasn't impossible just yet. Slight Round was at +4, but with only 100 HP, I had to sacrifice him while building up Never Round. He was able to get Archaludon down to 1/3 HP before going out. Earlier in the fight, I had swapped out the weakened Quaiton Round to start setting up, and thankfully I did, as if both of the birds that I had were full HP here, I might have lost this, because with one being weakened, we can have a classic case of abusing good Pokemon AI, because I knew both of his attacks would be targeting Quaiton Round, as she'd be a guaranteed kill, meaning she can protect, absorbing the damage, allowing Never Round a free Swords Dance to get to +4. In a slight bit of stupidity here though, I went for a Quick Claw Feather Dance on Sceptile, not risking the double protect, and not attacking Archaludon because I didn't want to risk stamina activating. But you know, in my script writing hindsight, I was like, why don't you just Sucker Punch the Sceptile? But even without an extra stamina boost, Never Round Sucker Punch still doesn't kill Archaludon, and both of them target Quaiton Round, taking her out. Archaludon was on 1 HP though, and one last Sucker Punch from Never Round would do the job. He would just have to survive the attacks from Sceptile, who is using Acrobatics, doing about 1/3 per hit. But Leftovers Protect Recovery bought me enough time to be able to Sucker Punch it for the win, even with it getting a lucky crit. A 25-minute battle, during which Mr. Ducky Arthur decided to grace the offline Twitch chat with a classic exclamation point toaster, which I would like to point out isn't even a command, so I have no clue what that was about. But this battle still could have ended in heartbreak if Sceptile wasn't holding an item, because that crit Acrobatics would have done double damage. Thankfully it holds a weakness policy, so we didn't have to endure that heartbreak at the end. But at last we're able to grant Drayton's fantasy of getting him and his team stepped on. I really wasn't sure how to feel about this victory just yet though. While on one hand it took a while and was nice to be done with, on the other hand it was entirely possible that this wasn't even the hardest member of the Elite 4, because lo and behold, we have a fire-type junkie to deal with. Naturally, I was going to put this one off for later. I took a moment to gather my thoughts and strategies, and decided to take on a Maris and her steel types next. The good news for this fight is that both of her leads are physical attackers as well, but the bad news is her Skarmory. Stealth Rocks plus Whirlwind, and to top it off, a Rocky Helmet. Whirlwind makes it so you can't do setup, and with my team of Rowlets, it would take multiple hits before going down without setup. All the while, we're taking loads of passive damage from both of these hazards, as well as the Dugtrio that's also on the field. But with the prior knowledge from fighting Drayton though, it only took one reset to figure out what to do. Instead of Sucker Punching, I actually had to use Shadow Sneak, because Skarmory wants to use Whirlwind way too much for Sucker Punch to be reliable. We start the battle. I Swords Dance on turn 1 with both. Then comes the double Shadow Sneak, which only does about a third between the two of them, and in those 2 turns, Dugtrio took out a Borb by itself, leaving the other Borb to get swept up by Whirlwind. But this was actually good. Having a Borb faint allows me to switch in to Quite Unround, and she can come in with the Terra Fire Blast that still doesn't kill, and she catches a Stone Edge and a Whirlwind to the face. But luck would have it that the Whirlwind chooses our final Borb with Shadow Sneak, allowing the pair to finish off Skarmory. But we still aren't celebrating, because Dugtrio gets a crit Stone Edge, which actually did matter, because it was -2 from a Feather Dance. But from here on out, my fortune would turn around a bit. After all, if you flip enough coins, it'll eventually land on heads. Empoleon comes in, a constant threat to target Quite Unround with anything that can kill. However, not once, but twice does it choose to use Ice Beam on the non-Terra Borb instead. While this did only leave me with 2 Borbs, Empoleon got knocked down a sizable amount in the process. Quite Unround was able to take it out, while the Dugtrio Sucker Punch fails, giving Slight Round a free +2. But he would unfortunately be the target of Dugtrio and the incoming Caesar the next turn, and you can't help but ask how I win this at this point. It's a 4-on-2, and both Borbs are under half HP. But hey, coin flips are pretty cool, I guess. I protect Slight Round, who gets doubled on again, giving Quite Unround her first Swords Dance of the match. Then a failed Sucker Punch and a Quite Unround Protect gets us another Feather Dance on Caesar. With both Caesar and Dugtrio at -4, I made the bold decision to double Swords Dance, sensing it was going to be now or never. But I also saw an opportunity on the next turn to get Quite Unround behind a substitute. After protecting for a turn, I go for it, and I have to go for a Sucker Punch on Dugtrio with the other Borb to break the Focus Sash. They flurry into Slight Round, leaving him on 7 HP, but stalling for leftovers gets him out of the Bullet Punch range, which lets us land a Sucker Punch and a Terra Blast for a double knockout, even through the Akaberry, which brings in Metagross and Reuniclus. I protect with both Borbs, and she uses Ice Punch and Trick Room. The super effective Sucker Punch will still move first, knocking out the Reuniclus, before an Ice Punch will retire Slight Round from the battle. But this provides the opening for Quite Unround to knock out Metagross with a Terra Blast. My god. These fights are just barely possible, at least with the strats that I'm using. But hey, a win is a win. 2 down, 2 to go. Lacey was up next. And while Fairy is probably the best type in the game, this was the easiest Elite Four member, just cause everyone else was that hard. The starting strategy is similar, starting with the Quick Feather strat. However, it's Whimsicott and Granbull, and Whimsicott is a special attacker. Though, because it's not that strong offensively, you can mostly ignore it. While it and Granbull are able to take out a Rowlet early, this is an intended sacrifice, as it allows me to swap into Neverround, who's set up for Terra Steel. From there, I build Swords Dances on him and Quite Unround. I got greedy though, looking for a +6 attack on Quite Unround, only to get smacked to death on that turn. This leaves me trying to build up on Slight Unround, but also having to acknowledge that it's time to attack. I double up on Whimsicott, leading her to bring in Slowbro, the biggest threat to our Terra Steel Borb. Thankfully, a Shadow Sneak is enough to let Neverround finish it off. With Primarina in, I protect Slight Round, as Lacey goes for double ice moves into that slot, getting Neverround the easy takedown, making her bring in Alchemy. Since Alchemy is not a huge threat, I used the opportunity to get Neverround behind a substitute, as well as getting Slight Round to +4. Slight Round gets confused, but is able to pull out a Protect next turn to let Neverround take it down. And in comes Excadrill, the scariest fairy type. Unfortunately, Slight Round takes himself out with Confusion, letting her double up on Neverround. But thanks to the substitute, we survive, and Excadrill is no more. And with everything else gone, we finally take down Granbull, getting us the victory with 3 Borbs still standing. And now, the moment we've been dreading. it's time to take on Crispin. If you want an indication of how dumb this is, I had to reset my game to one of his random trainers in his trial. Though that was mostly because I had prepped everyone for the Crispin fight, so they had Shadow Sneak or no attacking move at all, and she for some reason has 2 Pyroars, so I couldn't do damage. So I had to reset and switch some to Sucker Punch before making him a sandwich. And fun fact, he makes a comment if you don't use the top bun.
Wait, he talks about that? You didn't put bread on top? Is that a Paldean thing?
But even though we're dealing with super effective fire types here, thanks to my experience in dealing with the rest of the Elite Four, I shockingly completed this on the first try, which was helped out by some good luck. It starts with a quick feather strat for Talonflame. There was a high chance for Talonflame to use Sunny Day on turn 1, and Rotom Heat surprisingly doesn't use Overheat in favor of a Will-O-Wisp, allowing an easy -4 on Talonflame. The next turn though, Rotom Heat would obliterate Round Boy, but Overheat is going to weaken Rotom for me, so we now have a -6 Talonflame and a -2 Rotom. In comes Neverround, who's able to set up a light screen for good measure, while also Round gets a Shadow Sneak in before bowing out. And in comes the ace, Slight Round. We're looking to be carried by Terra Dark here, mostly just cause it's neutral on everything, and cause I just didn't feel like changing to Terra Ground or Terra Rock. I get him set up with Swords Dance and a substitute, and during our setup, for some reason he just constantly kept getting targeted even with a Borb who was a guaranteed kill next to him. But with the full +6 setup, it was time to strike. Terra Blast goes on Talonflame, but because of a Will-O-Wisp, Quite Unround's Sucker Punch doesn't get rid of Rotom. She follows that up with an unnecessary crit on the next turn instead. Exeggutor is rather slow, so we outspeed and one-shot with Terra Blast. The double knockout has him send in Magmortar and Camerupt, who were looking to use double Heat Waves. And Quite Unround is far too weak at this point, so she chunks Magmortar for half before he took her down. But Slight Round's able to outspeed the Camerupt for his one-shot. So now it's down to a 2v2, Slight Round and Roundish Bish versus Blaziken and Magmortar. But taking advantage of the good AI, we would know that Roundish Bish is going to be the target of Blaziken, so I have her protect, allowing Slight Round to get that +6 one-shot. And our Round duo is able to clean up Magmortar on the next turn, and holy crap, we're moving on to Kieran. Oh shit, we're moving on to Kieran. Let's just think about this for a second. 6 level 80 or higher Pokemon, 4 of which have a super effective move to easily one-shot one of our Borbs, or at least get it close. And to add insult to injury, both of his lead Pokemon are special attackers. And it's not like Rowlet can learn Eerie Impulse for us to be able to lower special attack by 2 stages. So how the heck are we supposed to beat this? The answer is luck. That's just it. Sorry J-Rose fans, if you want a non-luck based strategy, you're not going to get one. But it's not like you'd have to sit here forever to reset for perfect RNG, because it actually didn't take too long to pull it off. Still using Quick Claw, we pivot to using Confuse Ray. We pretty much just need some confusion hits to pull this off. We get one on Dragonite for turn 1, though Politoed leaves a Borb in the red with Ice Beam, which is a range to kill for the record. But thanks to the good AI, this allows me to protect on turn 2, having both of them focus on it, allowing me to set up Light Screen. Unfortunately, Extreme Speed will outspeed a Quick Claw, so our Borb still goes down on the next turn, and Dragonite very rudely shook off the confusion on turn 2, but thankfully for us, Neverround went God Mode. We get a Quick Claw Confuse Ray, getting Dragonite to hit itself yet again. And with this strat, I finally used the Nightshade TMs that I made in the first video, because dealing 100 damage a pop, it's honestly one of our best offensive weapons, particularly on the Borbs that don't get to use setup. I probably could have used it against Skarmory, but that's in the past, I guess. With God Mode enabled, Neverround proceeds to get 3 Quick Claw procs with it, ultimately taking down Dragonite and doing some good damage to Politoed before going down to Ice Beam. What a legend. We salute you, sir. Slight Round is now on the field, becoming Terra Fairy for this fight. On the other side, Porygon Z comes in. Good AI strikes again, as Roundish Bish is a guaranteed one-shot to Porygon's Ice Beam, and thankfully Kieran went ahead and doubled up there, allowing Slight Round to take out Politoed with +2 Trailblaze, which raises our speed and significantly raises our margin of error. In comes Incineroar. I protect with Slight Round and get a crit Sucker Punch on Porygon Z, but Roundish Bish gets hit by the Ice Beam, bringing us down to our final 2 Borbs. On the switch in, I protect Quite Unround, having Slight Round go up to +4, and this was a very tense moment of the fight. Do I go for double protect, or do I go for Sucker Punch, with which a crit would take out Porygon Z? I ultimately chose Sucker Punch, and it didn't crit. However, Porygon's ensuing Ice Beam makes it kill itself with Life Orb, making my situation look slightly better, but all I have is is the Terra Fairy +3 attack, +1 speed Slight Round versus Kieran's last 3 Pokemon. But it's still Slight Round's turn, and he goes for the kill on Incineroar, leaving Grimmsnarl and Hydrapple. I would protect for a turn for HP, while Grimmsnarl would predictably set up Reflect. The final thing that would decide if I would win the battle is if this Terra Blast at +3 would be able to one-shot Hydrapple. I click the button, he winds up, and boom! It's just Slight Round versus Grimmsnarl. It's using Spirit Break, doing about a third with each hit, but it had a Focus Sash, giving it one last chance to crit me for the win, and we dodged it. Just imagine the emotional damage if I lost the 20-minute battle to a single crit at the end. But with our victory, Drayton will now be able to bully Kieran until the end of time, because we just beat him with a team of Rowlets, and Ducky's Toaster was able to witness it all. After the battle, Drayton confesses his love, praising us for the Dami Mommy that we are. But we turn him down, because after all, we beat him with a team of Rowlets too. What a loser. With that, it was time for the finale of the Indigo Disk DLC, the showdown with the hidden treasure itself. Going into it, I wasn't quite sure if we had to have our exact team ready before going in, but thankfully you don't. You can leave whenever you want to. It'll just take a while to get back to the end of the cave. But if we couldn't leave, I probably straight up wouldn't have been able to beat this with what I brought in. The first part, where Kieran goes rogue, is easy enough, but I didn't even get halfway through my first attempt of Mega Terapagos. I did learn during the fight what I would need to do though, but it was late at night, so I decided to give it a try in the morning. Unfortunately, meaning we'd have to say goodbye to Ducky's Toaster. I'm sorry, Ducky's Toaster. Guess you won't be able to watch the finale after all. But what was the super complex strategy that was going to guide me to victory? Well, basically you just need a full team of Terra Dark sucker-punching Rowlets, with maybe one Terra Grass with Leaf Blade and Trailblaze. So that's a little anticlimactic, but there was an important piece of tech here, is that I couldn't Trailblaze until I knew the Rowlet would be dead on the next turn, because Terra Starstorm will be super effective, which one-shots you from full HP. But if you're not terastallized, it does about half. But if you never terastallize, it's pretty much impossible to do enough damage. Thankfully on phase 2, it becomes Psychic type, making Sucker Punch super effective, and pretty much makes it one-shot the shield for that phase. The main struggle I could foresee in most challenge runs would be making it to the third shield, because at least then you will have Kieran who will join the battle. During this third shield, it becomes a water type, so that's why you want that Terra Grass Burb. Kieran gives me a Dragon Cheer, giving us a pumped up Leaf Blade, which helped us take out that final shield with a crit. And after we leave it on literally 1 HP, because I was too scared to terastallize, his Dragonite came in with the Thunder. And with that, we've beaten the Indigo Disk DLC. It wasn't looking possible multiple times, but somehow, here we are. Meaning, all that was left for the round squad was the DLC epilogue. And we're honestly just gonna fast forward here. Anticlimactic, but everything until the Nemota battle at the end is incredibly easy. Even the battle with Arven and Penny, largely because Kieran fights with you the entire time, so he can do damage while we set up, or we could even just protect and have him deal with everyone. But Nemona at the end is evidently a bit difficult to figure out. And of course she would be. Her entire team is level 86 with Skeledirge at level 87, and we have a mind-boggling 5 Pokemon with super effective hits for a normal Rowlet. So yeah, a bit difficult to figure out. But actually, it's not even that difficult. It might surprise you to find out that this was actually the fastest battle since the start of Blueberry Academy, only taking a meager 10 minutes to complete. And what's even more shocking is you only need 1 Borb to pull it off. All you need is a Rowlet with Protect, Swords Dance, Shadow Sneak, and Sucker Punch, and having Terra Ghost holding leftovers. It doesn't even involve that much luck here. I Terastallize going for 3 Swords Dance right away. Turn 1, she uses Stealth Rock, which can randomly be a Stone Edge, and I did get lucky with a turn 2 Stone Edge miss. But after turn 3, we're +6 with 2 types of priority moves. Could you ask for an easier sweep? It turns out with this setup, the only thing you can't one-shot is Como-O, who will take 2 Shadow Sneaks. But there you go, and after she's done, Pecharunt is just a victory lap. You can use that same Borb, or the entire party slowly killing it with Sucker Punch. It doesn't really matter. I knocked it out, caught it with a Premier Ball, and saved the people of Kitakami from the eternal chicken dance. Concluding this journey of beating all of Pokemon Violet, its DLC, and its epilogue with only a team of Rowlets. Hard to believe that it was even possible. I thought for sure that I was gonna have to at least use items to get it done, especially after that first Terapagos attempt where I didn't even get halfway through, but there was always something that went just right enough to avoid that outcome. A massive thank you to Round Boy, Slight Round, Also Round, What is Round, Roundish Bish, Quite Unround, Never Round, Roundint, and you, the viewer, for coming on this journey with me. The support from you guys is what allows me to do these crazy Pokemon videos. Before you leave, remember to like the video and please subscribe if you've made it this far. Clearly you liked something about it, and there's plenty more videos where this came from. And if you want to support me directly, you can do so here on YouTube with a membership or super thanks, or on my Twitch channel, where I occasionally film new videos. But until next time, this is Trails and the Round Squad, signing off.